Nobody wants to talk to you at all. And I got into trouble with Eon because, you know, when you sign a direct debit with these power companies, they start sucking money out of your account. You're essentially giving them interest-free loans. So I simply cancelled my account, didn't pay anything for 3 months, and then they started twitching, or at least a computer did. And then you get a letter coming through, right? Oh, are you having problems, Mr. Day? Money problems? Not that I know of. Is there a problem? I mean, can I help you with anything? So anyway, it's about time we make the system honest, because it ain't right now. Already facing health challenges, let's turn the tide. Practical steps to reclaiming their health, and we're going to get into that right now. Once again, with any health issues, most are failing at the first corner. The first corner is this one. It's the 40,000-foot view, I call it. Okay, so I've got arthritis, I've got all sorts of problems. I've got, maybe I'm lame, maybe I've got high blood pressure, whatever. What will the medical system do for me? Or what can I do for myself? This second question is something you can really only ask if you've had the knowledge to be able to apply it. And by the way, if you have this knowledge, guess what happens? You relax. Those people who are terrified of going to the doctor or going to a consultant or what have you, oftentimes, people say to me, well, if you were in my shoes, Philip, what would you do? And I'm honest with them. I said, I wouldn't go near these people. Because the first thing I did 35 years ago, when I came as an investigation of the medical system, was to investigate outcomes. What does that mean? It's like, okay, we've been using, let's say cancer, we've been using chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery for the thick end of 120 years. How well have we done? There's the outcome question. The answer is these people should be in prison. We're certainly not getting any sort of money out of it. We're not seeing survival. We're seeing people that do get past the 5-year survival rate only to have the thing come back. I'm dealing with a lady right now. She said the cancer come back 4 times. I said, you're sick of it yet? She says, you have no idea. With any health issues, you do the obvious first. Learn, apply, repeat, pattern. Now that's actually an advanced way of saying this. First of all, learn about it. That's what we're here to do today. I'm here to show you that you don't need to know everything walking out of that door. You just need to know where to go to find the answer or who to ring up, right? So you can phone me up and we'll have a chat about it. Then, don't take my word for it, examine it, go into the books, look online to some trusted places and see if it works. Apply, repeat, pattern. I work with a lot of doctors over the years, and a lot of them are still doing this after many, many years. Fantastic success. And they keep getting trouble from the medical system who want to shut them down because they're not following, they're not playing ball, they're not doing what the authorities want them to do. The obvious stuff, while you're sitting there figuring out what to do, while you take your jacket off and roll up your sleeves, do this. Number 1, optimize your vitamin D. If necessary, fast. 20 to 1,000 IUs a day, pop them in there, 2 weeks, do the test, rejig the diet in the way we've looked at, eat natural, properly constituted food, normalize your insulin, you can do it in 7 to 9 hours, manage stress input, move, walk, climb stairs, and learn at the same time. When you do this, you know what happens? The stress goes. Why? Because you're taking action. The people get stressed or the people get worried if they can't find a way out of it. If they can't see a road out, then they get nervous, or then they have to phone up a doctor and then they say, well, we can't see you for a couple of weeks. Guess they're going to go through 2 weeks from hell at that point, wondering what to do next. You're not powerless, you're not reckless for asking questions, and doing nothing is almost never neutral. Going back to what Dr. Casey Means was saying, the big problem is this metabolic dysfunction, what we eat, drink, slap on our skin, look at and listen to, and this is the place where you start. We've got to reprogram how we grew up. Pharmaceuticals, not completely useless. Drugs can reduce symptoms. Some can buy time, but very few restore metabolic health because drugs are not essentially the metabolic requisites for body's good health. And this is where people get into trouble because they simply get bounced from pillar to post, especially if they get into a serious situation like cancer or heart problems or all the rest of it.
So you run out of the essential nutrients your body needs, then something breaks. So you go to the only medicine that your insurance pays for, which is allopathic MD-directed medicine. The doctors don't know anything about medical nutrition. They don't believe that the body can cure itself, so they give you a drug that manages the problem. The drug, in its working in the human body, also burns through nutrients. So after 6 months or a year, the drug stops working, or they need to increase its potency, or they need to give you a second or a third drug. and then you get worse, and then you need another drug, and then it gets worse, and then you need surgery, and then you get a secondary infection from the surgery, and then you need another drug for that, and then you die. And then your relatives are so grief-stricken that they organize a 5K run on your behalf to come up with a cure for stomach cancer. And who do they give the money to? The people that failed you in the first place.
So we come back to this slide here. What's killing us today in descending order of beastliness? This lot here, all listed out in the ABCs. I'm just going to run you through a few of these disease conditions so you can see how this thing works. Let's look at diabetes first of all. Of course, people know, well, okay, diabetes, there's diabetes type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 2 is the big one. Type 3 is another name that they've given to Alzheimer's, but there's a lot more to Alzheimer's than just blood sugar, as we'll find out. Type 1 is essentially where you've wrecked the body's ability to produce insulin in the first place, so the insulin has to come in from, generally through jabs. Type 2 is the one I want to concentrate here, because this is something that is easily fixable, and if the truth got out, empires would fall, unfortunately, and it is getting out. Can you notice now that they had this whole block on information up until 1995, after which when the internet comes online, all sorts of information now gets put out. There's a lot of it that's really crummy, bad information, okay? So this is where we've got to kind of have a think and evaluate, check this, what we're being told and what we learn. So here you're looking at a day, starting at 7 a.m. in the morning and every hour going up to midnight of that same day. And what you see going in are the meals. Now this is essentially depicted as blood sugar, that's the blue one. Notice you've got two environments inside you. You've got the extracellular environment, which I call the meat and the blood and all the rest of it. So if you cut yourself, that's extracellular environment. Then you've got the intracellular environment, which is actually inside these amazing cell cities. When you look at this, what you're seeing is this person has a breakfast right about 8:30, and you see a shot of blood sugar going in, and then immediately it comes out. So this is blood sugar, and immediately it goes down because the sugar's gone into the cell at that point. And insulin is produced by the body to essentially, if you visualize insulin as a bulldozer, picks up the shiny, glittery white sugar, trundles it up to the cell city, knocks on the gate, gates open up, and it trundles the sugar into the cell. Now it's inside the cell city, if you like. And then you see this big drop because it's no longer outside the cell. And you notice that 11-zus comes in at this point. So you get this kind of roller coaster thing. Now this is post-1850. Once people got a taste for sugar, and also all the dainties, we go from this. So this is essentially what people's sugar profile would have looked like in, say, the 1700s. And then along comes sugar, it's now commercial, and you've got all of the coffee houses and the sweet cakes and all the rest of it. So now you're into this whole roller coaster thing going on. So what people don't realize is that sugar inside the cell at high doses is poisonous. It's a toxin. So when the cell city is getting bombarded with sugar, then it will put up a resistance to that as a safety measure. This is known as insulin resistance. It simply bans the bulldozers from bringing the sugar into the city. Now you've got insulin resistance. And so how is the cell feeding itself now? It can't get the sugar in, and you've been told fat's bad, so you're not getting any fat coming in. And then the cell will start to decay and die. So this is the situation you get, and late stage type 2 is a really ugly, horrible thing. And people are not being given the right information. And the worst thing you can do is to put insulin into an insulin-resistant body because it's not going to work. The cells aren't going to receive the insulin. What you've got to do is convince the cell that you're going to feed it the alternative fuel source, which is fat. So the first thing you do when you have type 2 diabetes is go on a ketogenic diet. If you go to Google and type in keto dishes, K-E-T-O, keto dishes, and hit enter, in fact, go up and click images on a Google search, you'll get 1 million photographs of what you can eat, which is basically fat-predominant food. And you're going to get pictures of plate loads of bacon, which probably not what we're talking about. I'm just, you all know what I'm talking about. You walk around the supermarket often enough, and you can go out and get the natural alternatives and the stuff that's grown organically as well. The bottom line is this. Watch how the insulin, now that's at 2 o'clock roughly, this big lunch goes in, and then the insulin production starts to drop down, and it drops down, and then it gets just a baseline, and then all of a sudden this massive sugary supper goes in, goodness knows what they're eating at this point, shoots it off the chart, Now, had they not had a high sugar supper, but had they had something like wild Alaskan salmon with broccoli and asparagus spikes, pine nuts on top with a lemon drizzle, there's nothing in there to provoke insulin, right? So what would have happened is that this insulin production would have come down here, then they'd start tracking along here. Get that? Now, what happens now is, as soon as the cell realizes that this has changed the routine, it will start to have a think about it and say, I wonder if Phillip's actually, changed his wicked ways, or if this is just an anomaly. And the cell itself will track you for about 10 to 15 days to see if you've changed your wicked ways. And if you have, it raises the block on insulin. And you have it. You want to see something really neat? Watch this. That's the diabetes type 2 system, that's the road out. That's the cancer system, that's the road out. That is a lot of the heart disease system, that's the road out. That's the Alzheimer's type 3 system, that's the road out. And you know what? I've never seen it not work. If people are doing this thing properly, that's how it works. So when you're looking at roller coasters, you're looking at flattening the ride out a little bit. And by the way, recently last year they brought in Martin Macri to head up the Food and Drug Administration in America. He's been moved on now. But this is how you know that you've won, because you've got a guy like Martin Macri saying this, and he's now head of the wicked FDA.
I was never taught the truth that you can make some forms of skin eczema disappear by changing what you eat, that you can cure most type 2 diabetes by changing what you eat, that you can improve your gut health and mental clarity and memory by changing what you eat. Those are principles that we know to be true, that clinicians have observed, but we just don't hear about. Today, we are setting the record straight. The old system, that a pill for everything is going to solve our health problems, is no longer the framework. We are getting back to the root causes of our healthcare chronic disease epidemic.
You wouldn't be hearing that if the bad guys were still in charge, that's for sure. In 2022, this is what I mentioned earlier, the total cost of care for people with diagnosed diabetes, most of it type 2, in America was $413 billion. About 1 in 4 healthcare dollars is spent on people with diagnosed diabetes. Right? I mean, we're not failing on a complicated level here, really, are we, when you think about it? Let's look at heart disease. Let's look at aspects of heart disease. Let's start with high blood pressure. Look, I was saying to one of you at the break, if you went to a doctor in 1940, they would tell you that normal blood pressure is 100 plus your age over 95. Then in 1970, they dropped that to now normal is 160 over 90. Then in 2000, we're down to 140 over 90. In 2025, normal needs to be less than 120 over 80. What is the net result of doing that? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to be drawing in literally hundreds of millions of people worldwide into taking antihypertensive medications, and sure enough, worldwide achieved a revenue of 36.7 billion in 2024. Blood pressure medications don't treat the root cause and inflict grave side effects, resulting in more pills prescribed to counter negative side effects. So when it comes down to changing and boosting beneficial fats, this is absolutely the way to go. You're going to notice a big difference. The moment you start switching over, you'll notice a big difference literally within 24 hours. Good fats, bad fats? Just in case you need some clarity on that one.
The only thing mouthwash is good for is cleaning your toilets. Whatever you do not use mouthwash in your mouth. Multiple studies have shown significant health issues in humans using mouthwash daily. Increased blood pressure, an increased rate of diabetes in observational studies, decreased athletic performance, decreased gains in the gym, decreased VO2 max, that's a measure of how much oxygen you can use, your oxygen aerobic capacity. All of these things happen when you use mouthwash because it kills all the bacteria in your mouth which produce nitric oxide, a compound essential for vasodilatation, opening of your blood vessels. So if you want to be a healthy human, support your oral microbiome with good quality foods, avoiding sugar, avoiding seed oils. What's a better option other than this that nukes your oral microbiome? Saltwater rinses or pulling oil with coconut oil. These are great for oral hygiene and they won't destroy your delicate oral microbiome. Send this to somebody you know who's washing their mouth with mouthwash, is messing themselves up.
Good for blood pressure. Lose weight, change the diet over to ketone, normalize your insulin. exercise. Now, PK exercise is what you want to go for. That's a fancy way of saying find a form of exercise that raises and lowers the heart rate in 60-second intervals. So a good way of doing this would be to go up and down a set of stairs a few times till you're out of breath but not uncomfortably so. Maintain that level of intensity for 60 seconds and then completely relax. Let the heart rate come all the way down to its resting pulse. And then when you're in resting pulse, do it again. Up and down. Now, if you've been to a gym or you've been on the Stairmasters or the bikes or the Versa climbers, they do the thing called the hill profile, which essentially is loading on tension that's going to get you out of breath in those 60-second intervals. And it's called PK because you do it 8 times. So this is an exercise you can knock out. You don't have to have an expensive gym membership. You can just do it with a set of stairs, up and down a hill or whatever else. Or have the wife chase you. What you can do is, once you get to PK, what you're doing is you're exercising what we call heart rate variability. This is very, very important. Vitamin D, vitamin C, mag citrate, all of which are great for blood pressure. Mag especially, because again, mag is a relaxant, and you put it in with vitamin C, and also the collagen compounds, you can put it in there as well if you want. Drink water. People who are dehydrated have less blood, which means the entire cardiovascular system has to constrict, to take up the slack, to prevent the blood from gassing. If the blood gasses, you're dead. So one of the most important things is to increase blood volume, make sure you are hydrated. What the body doesn't need, it's going to pee out, of course. Adjust your omega-6 to 3 fat ratios. This isn't a complicated issue if you just do it according, you do it with krill, you can just make sensible selections with your food. Don't use mouthwash, and also stress management. And one of the most important things when it comes down to blood pressure is this one.
If you had a heart attack today, or had stroke level high blood pressure and you called an ambulance, you know what the first thing they're going to inject inside of you when you get in the ambulance and they take you to the hospital? Without ever talking to a doctor, they're going to inject you with saline. You know what saline is? 9,000 milligrams of salt in that bag of water. And if you have extremely high blood pressure at stroke level, you know they do 2 of those bags in what they call a push. They will push 18,000 milligrams of salt inside your body, and guess what happens? Your blood pressure starts coming down. Your kidneys are what release water out of the body. The kidneys operate with what are called sodium-potassium pumps. What's another word for sodium? Salt. All right, so you have salt-potassium pumps that are required in your kidneys to pump out water. What happens is when we start depriving ourselves of salt, because the world tells us to eat less salt, and our doctors all tell us to eat less salt, need a low-sodium diet, our kidneys don't get the salt they need, and we will start retaining water. And as we retain water, there's now increased pressure on our blood vessels, and guess what the majority of Americans are put on? Diuretics like Lasix to make you pee. Do you know what Lasix is? It's patented salt. It says your diuretics. So they want you to swallow their prescription salt in a tablet form. They don't want you eating it in your food. It's one of the greatest lies in medicine.
So salt's important, and by the way, 2 different types of salt. In fact, you can break salt down into a number of variants. You've got marine salts derived from the sea, terrain salts derived from the land, and then you have processed salts, and the problem with processed salts is when they refine the salt, they're superheating this thing, which breaks the ionic structure of the salt, so the body finds it can't absorb it, so now it has to rid it as a toxin, and to do that, it's got to round up at least 20 times the volume of salt in water to flush that thing right out. So when you choose your salts, you want to make sure it's a natural salt. I tend towards the terrain salts, more things like Himalayan salt, but even with Himalayan salt, you've got to make sure that this thing is cut out, not blast harvested with explosives, which is the faster way version. One of the other things you get with marine salts is there is a methyl mercury poisoning problem going on in our oceans at this point. Now, some salts, these boutique salts, as I've traveled around, like if you go down to Australia, they do Murray River salt, and you get these local boutique salts, which are great. And so salt is absolutely vital, and the body is well into using it. Magnesium loss, by the way, if you're low on salt, magnesium loss in sweat is 10 times greater during low salt intakes as a means to preserve sodium. So this thing has a cascade effect if you're not careful. We get into this in the water and salt book. While we're on the subject of powders, anybody follow Barbara O'Neill? Okay, so she's talking about charcoal, so let's have a quick look at charcoal from Babs.
Nothing else will do that. And in hospitals today, they use charcoal for poisoning cases. One girl said to me, I had an overdose and they gave me a choice to have my stomach pumped out or take charcoal. Should I chose the charcoal? So charcoal absorbs and neutralizes poisons. So it can be used internally and it can be used externally. Now charcoal doesn't have a taste. And you can use it if any poison has been ingested. And it can also be used if a person has diarrhea or gastric or bloating. The charcoal, when it's taken, will absorb and neutralise the poisons and can bring a lot of relief. So if ever I had a baby that had a bit of diarrhea, I'd give him a bit of charcoal. And when I got the black nappy, because I didn't use disposable nappy, I knew that my baby was well. Because once that charcoal goes through, it absorbs and neutralises the poisons. So you can use it internally and you can use it externally. You use it externally again for cases of poisoning. So it can be used for a bee sting, an ant bite, a snake bite. You don't have many snakes here. We have a few in Australia. Spider bites, do you have spiders? Oh, maybe we don't need to talk about the charcoal. Wasps, bees, any sting, it's quite incredible. You almost have to experience it to believe it, that it takes the pain out straight away. And the reason it takes the pain out is because it absorbs and neutralizes the poisons.